And this topic is going to be about our chords and the relationships of our arcs. So this theorem list continues on, and there's some important piece of information that we must participate in. So the very first one that we look at is that we're going to have a congruent central angles are going to have congruent arcs. So what we mean by that is that no matter what, if we are to form our central angles from here, no matter what, we know that these arcs here are going to be congruent. So here's an arc AB. I know that my arc of AB would then be congruent to my arc of DC. Whatever that arc is going to be, we don't know, but they will be congruent. Okay? Then it tells us that congruent central angles are going to have congruent chords. So again, if I was to have a central angle to come out here to here, this chord, and from here to here, this chord would be congruent. Then, of course, it tells us that the congruent, if I know that AB is congruent to DC, that means that arc AB will be congruent to arc DC, whatever the amount of that is going to be. And here we can see that our arcs are going to be what we call equal distance from the center. So from here to here, the chord is going to be equal distance from here to here. Okay? All right, so now let's in turn practice that. It asks us what is the value of x, and we can see that x is located right here. Now remember we said that this chord of AB is going to be congruent to this chord of DC for several reasons that they listed here, and we can pick any one of those. So because we know that these two chords are going to be congruent, and we can go ahead and write that down. We'll write it down here. Now that DC is going to be a total of 3.5, but we see the markings are the same here, so we know that this is also 3.5. So when we add these two together, of course, we're going to have 7. So because the DC equals 7, we know that AB is also going to be 7. And in this case, since AB is x, we know that x is going to equal 7, just like that. Okay? And in justifying your answer, any of these will work. Any of these will work. Okay? So now we're going to talk a little bit more about chords, and then after this we're going to be done with today's lesson. So in this particular one, what we're going to be able to see, thing is ridiculous. All right, what we're going to be able to see is that if we have two chords that intersect in a circle, product, that means we're going to be using multiplication. Products of the lengths of the segments of one chord is going to be equal to the product of the segments of the other chord. So what we did right here was provide what we are talking about. So what we're saying is this first chord of A, D. So we're going to take this first piece of AP and multiply it by PD. And then we're going to set it equal to BP being multiplied by PC. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and do an example down here, but before we even do that, we need to make sure that we label. So according to the diagram that we have here, we have circle O. We have two chords, just like above, that intersect at point E. They're telling us that AE is going to be equal to 4. So when we locate AE, go ahead and fill in your 4. We know that EB is going to be equal to 6. So go ahead and fill in your 6. And then they give us that CE is going to be 3. They're asking us to find this. And remember, whenever we're finding something, we know that that's going to be a variable. And in this case, we'll use X. So in this case, I'm going to write it out so that there's no confusion into where to fill this in, although I'm quite sure the majority of you have already solved for it. AE times EB, remember that's one chord, and that's going to be equal to the other chord, which is going to be CE, and that's going to be multiplied by ED. So all we're doing is filling in the numbers to solve for X. So of course, here we have the E, our AE, and the AE is 4, times our 6, and we're going to set that equal to 3, times ED, and ED is going to be X. Okay, so go ahead and multiply this, and when you do so, you're going to come up with 24. And that's going to be set equal to 3 times X, which is just 3X. To get X by itself, all we have to do is divide. That cancels out. And we know that X is going to be equal to 8. So, since this is equal to 8, we have our answer. Now, in the very last one, I believe that you should be able to do this. It's already filled in for you. Go ahead and solve for your X. Please make sure that you have your notes with you when you are ready to receive some assistance on the assignment associated with this one. All right, talk to y'all later. Hold on, paper. Hold on, y'all. Can't let you go just yet. Okay.